You might have seen a forum post I made a few years back, the one about the house with the swing set. Yeah, that was me. At first, all the strange things happening were easy to brush off. You know, a new house settling, an overactive imagination. But I pretty quickly came to the chilling conclusion that the thing in that house wasn't just haunting it. It was studying me. It was learning my habits and my fears, all to build the perfect trap. I'm telling the whole story now, not just the fragmented posts I made when I was in the thick of it. I'm telling it because I need to remember what was real, and maybe to warn anyone who finds themselves in a place that feels just a little too quiet, a little too watchful. This isn't just a ghost story. It's what happens when a predator wears a house-like skin. It all started because I just wanted some quiet. After years in a cramped city apartment, where the soundtrack of my life was a constant mix of sirens and neighbors fighting, the house felt like a sanctuary. It was a simple two-story place at the end of a long gravel driveway, boxed in on three sides by a dense, unwelcoming forest. The realtor, a woman with a smile that never quite made it to her eyes, called it secluded. I called it perfect. I'm a freelance programmer, a job that lets me be a hermit, and this house was the cathedral I'd been looking for. The property was bigger than I needed, with 3 bedrooms and a sprawling wild yard that the woods were slowly swallowing. The previous owners, an elderly couple, had passed away, and their son, who clearly just wanted to offload the inherited problem, had priced it to sell. He'd even left some of the furniture, heavy, dark wood pieces that seemed to suck the light out of the rooms and anchor the house to a past I knew nothing about. But the thing that really sold me? The swing set. It stood in the far right corner of the backyard, right on the edge of the tree line. It was old, made of weathered wood the color of bone with 2 swings. One was a simple plank, the other a faded yellow plastic toddler's swing. It was a weird, almost sad sight, like a monument to a long-gone childhood. But I could picture myself on warm evenings, sitting on the adult swing with a beer, just listening to the crickets, finally at peace. A romantic, foolish idea, it turns out. That first week was perfect. The silence I'd been dreaming of was absolute, broken only by the wind in the pines and the distant caw of a crow. I set up my office in an upstairs bedroom that overlooked the backyard. From my desk, I had a perfect view of the swing set. It became this static image of peace in my peripheral vision while I worked. I fell into a comfortable routine. Wake up, coffee, work until my eyes felt like sandpaper, then take a walk around the property, breathing in that clean, pine-scented air. I'm an introvert, but not a total recluse. I like my own company, but don't mind a bit of human contact now and then. The nearest town was a 15-minute drive away, a quaint little spot with 1 grocery store, a diner, and a post office. I'd make my weekly supply run, exchange a few pleasantries with the cashier, but otherwise I was completely alone, and I loved it. The house felt like an extension of me, quiet, self-contained, and happy. The inside of the house had a certain character I was trying to tame. The walls were off-white, and the dark hardwood floors creaked, like an old ship. I spent the first couple of weeks cleaning, painting, and just trying to make the space feel like mine. That furniture the old owners left behind was sturdy, but man, it was oppressive. There was this one rocking chair in the living room I especially hated. It just drew your eye, making the whole room feel centered on its empty, waiting presence. I eventually dragged it to the curb for pickup, feeling a small, stupid sense of victory as I did. The house had its quirks. Like all old houses, the plumbing would groan at weird hours. The floors settled with loud pops, and there were drafts I could never seem to find. I'm a logical person, so for every strange noise, I had an explanation. It's an old house on a big piece of land. Of course it's going to creak and sigh. My imagination, fueled by a lifetime of sci-fi and horror novels, was just looking for patterns where there weren't any. That's what I told myself every night as I locked the doors, the sound of the deadbolts echoing in the deep silence. That silence was exactly what I'd wanted, but in the middle of the night it felt heavy, like it was a presence all its own. I was alone, but it was becoming terrifyingly clear that I wasn't the only one in the house. The first thing I truly couldn't explain happened about 3 weeks in. It was so small, so easy to dismiss, that I almost convinced myself I imagined it. It was the swing set. I was at my desk, neck deep in code, when some flicker of movement in the yard pulled my eyes away from the screen. I glanced up. The swing on the right, the wooden plank one, was moving. It was just a slow, gentle back and forth arc, like someone had just stood up from it and walked away. My first thought, the wind. Had to be. But when I looked, the trees were perfectly still. Not a single leaf was moving. The air was heavy and thick, the way it gets on a hot, humid afternoon. I watched it for a full minute, my heart thudding a slow, heavy rhythm in my chest. The swing just kept going, lazy and rhythmic, with nothing pushing it. Then, as slowly as it started, it stopped. I was on edge for the rest of the day, constantly glancing out the window. The swing stayed put. I tried to rationalize it. A weird, localized gust of wind, a squirrel jumping off it. Nothing really fit. That evening, I made myself go outside and check it out. The wood was cool and damp. The chains were a little rusty but strong. I sat on it, my weight, feeling wrong, intrusive, and pushed off. The creak of the hooks was a familiar grounding sound. It was just a swing, an old swing. I was being ridiculous. But then other things started happening. Little inconsistencies that started to pull at the seams of my reality. I have a very specific routine when I come inside. Keys on the hook by the door, wallet on the little table in the hall, shoes on the mat. One afternoon, I spent 20 frantic minutes looking for my car keys, only to find them sitting right in the middle of the kitchen counter. I never put them there, ever. I just blamed it on a memory lapse, a sign I was working too hard. A few days after that, a book I'd left on my nightstand showed up on the coffee table downstairs. Again, I blamed myself. Absent-minded, stressed out, the isolation must be getting to me. These were the things a sane person would think, and I clung to them. I even started leaving things out of place on purpose, just to see. A pen angled a certain way on my desk, a mug with the handle facing left. They were always exactly where I left them, which in a weird way was almost more unsettling. It meant that whatever was happening wasn't random. It was deliberate. The sounds got more specific too. The house's usual creaks and groans were joined by new noises. I'd be watching TV downstairs and hear what sounded like a single, soft footstep in the upstairs hallway. Never more than one. Just one thud, loud enough to make me pause the show and listen, straining my ears in the crushing silence that always followed. I'd call out a hesitant, "Hello?" feeling like an idiot the second the word left my mouth. Of course, there was never a reply. One night, a sound woke me from a dead sleep and sent a jolt of pure adrenaline through me. It was a music box, faint and tinny, like it was coming from the very edge of my hearing. I lay there in bed, completely frozen, trying to place the melody. It was simple, childlike, Some nursery rhyme I couldn't quite name. It played for maybe 30 seconds and then just stopped, plunging the house back into a silence that now felt dangerous. I didn't sleep for the rest of that night. The next morning, running on coffee and a growing sense of dread, I searched the whole house. I opened every drawer, went through every closet, even explored the dusty, spiderweb-filled attic. There was no music box. The old owners hadn't left one. I didn't own one. It just didn't exist. This was the point where the fear changed. It wasn't just being scared of a bump in the night. It was the fear that my own mind was turning on me. Was I hallucinating? Was the total isolation causing some kind of breakdown? That thought was terrifying. You can at least try to fight or run from a ghost. But what do you do when the haunting is inside your own head? That's when I turned to the internet. I found a forum for paranormal stuff, a place where people shared their stories. Being anonymous gave me the courage to post. I tried to keep it brief and factual, so I didn't sound like a total lunatic. Username: Solitude Seeker. Subject: Strange occurrences in a new house. I moved into an old house a few weeks ago. Since then, some odd things have been happening. Objects not being where I left them, hearing single footsteps. Last night I heard a music box, but there isn't one in the house. Has anyone experienced anything similar? Is it just the stress of a new environment or something more? The replies were a mix. Some people told me I was imagining it, that it was my brain finding patterns in random noise. Others shared their own creepy stories, which made me feel less alone. But one reply really stuck with me. Be careful, it said. It starts small. It wants you to doubt yourself. That's how it gets in. I didn't know what it was, but that warning hit me with terrifying clarity. The feeling of being watched had gotten stronger. Sometimes I'd be working, and a sudden deep chill would wash over me, making the hair on my arms stand up even though the room was warm. I'd whip my head around, half expecting to see someone standing in the doorway, but there was only ever empty space. But the emptiness felt charged, like the air after a lightning strike. The thing in the house wasn't just making noise anymore, it was making itself known. It was studying me. And the swing in the yard, the one on the right, had started moving again, every single day at the exact same time. The swing became a clock. Every single afternoon, somewhere between 3 and 3:30, it would start moving. That same slow, steady pendulum swing that would last for about 10 minutes before stopping. It wasn't a random, unsettling thing anymore. It was a ritual. It was a message. And the message was, I am here. I am always here. I follow a schedule, just like you. Realizing that was a turning point. This wasn't some psychic echo of the past. A residual haunting. This thing was intelligent. It was aware. And it was using my own logic against me. I was a creature of habit. I woke up at the same time, ate at the same time, worked on a strict schedule. The entity had watched me and now it was mimicking me. It was showing me it understood patterns. It was showing me it was learning. The toll it took on me was immense. My paranoia went from a background hum to a screaming siren in my head. I started talking to myself, narrating my own actions just to feel like I was in control. Okay, I am now placing my keys on the hook. They are on the hook by the door. It was pathetic, and I knew it. The house was a prison I'd chosen, and my own mind was the warden. I lived with a constant low-level dread, that feeling you get when you're waiting for the phone to ring with bad news. Its games became more personal, more targeted. It started using my fears against me. Fears I didn't even know I was broadcasting. I have a mild thing against spiders, not a phobia, just a general dislike. Suddenly I started seeing them everywhere, or more accurately, I started almost seeing them. A dark smudge skittering in my peripheral vision, gone the instant I turned to look. The phantom feeling of a single strand of web brushing against my face in a clear hallway. It never left proof, just the lingering, skin-crawling suggestion that it had been there. It learned my habits through my laptop. One night I was listening to a playlist of old folk music, stuff from college I hadn't heard in years. The next day, while I was making lunch in the kitchen, I heard one of those exact songs, a sad ballad by some obscure artist, being hummed softly from the living room. It was faint, barely there, and it only lasted a few seconds. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just watching my physical routines anymore, it was watching my digital life. It was in my house, and now it was in my devices. Then I started losing time. There were gaps in my day, lost hours I couldn't account for. I'd sit down at my desk at 1 p.m, and the next thing I'd know, the clock would say 4 p.m. The sun would be low, casting long shadows across the yard, and I'd have zero memory of the last 3 hours. My work would be untouched. It was like someone had just snipped a piece out of my day. I'd feel groggy and confused, with a dull headache behind my eyes. The isolation became a weapon it used against me. I'd stopped my weekly trips to town. The thought of having to talk to people to pretend everything was fine was just too exhausting. My friends would call, their voices sounding thin and far away. "You sound tired, man. You okay?" "Yeah, just busy. This new project is a killer." How could I possibly explain? How could I tell them I thought I was losing my mind, that some thing was humming my favorite songs and stealing hours from my day? They'd think I was crazy. Hell, maybe I was. The line between what was real and what might be my own psychosis had completely disappeared. I documented everything on the forum. My posts became more frantic, more disjointed. They were less like reports and more like desperate journal entries. Username, Solitude Seeker. Subject, It's getting worse. It knows what I'm thinking. I swear to God it does. I was thinking about my mother's lemon cake yesterday, just a random memory. And this morning, the whole kitchen smelled faintly of lemons. There are no lemons in this house. It's not just in the house, it's in my head. It's reading me like a book and using it against me. The swing is still moving. Every day, it's mocking me. The lost time is the worst. It's like parts of my life are being deleted. I'm scared to sleep, I'm scared to be awake. Its presence was this constant, oppressive weight. It was an expert at wearing you down. It never did anything flashy or violent. It didn't throw things or slam doors. Its methods were much more subtle, much smarter. It was a slow, steady campaign of gaslighting, designed to make me question my senses, my memory, my sanity. It was dismantling me piece by piece, from the inside out. One afternoon during the daily swing ritual, I just snapped. I stormed out into the yard, my heart pounding with a mix of rage and terror. I marched right up to the swing set and screamed into the empty air. "What do you want from me? Leave me alone!" My voice sounded small and pathetic against the huge silence of the woods. For a second, nothing happened. The swing just kept up its calm, maddening rhythm. And then, for the first time, something new happened. The other swing, the little yellow toddler seat, started to move too. It swung in perfect synchronized opposition to the wooden one, back and forth, a silent, mechanical duet. I just stood there, frozen. My anger vanished, replaced by pure, uncut horror. This was a direct response, a clear, undeniable communication. It wasn't just watching anymore, it was playing with me. I stumbled backward, my legs feeling like jelly, and ran back into the house, slamming and locking the door behind me. I sank to the floor, my back pressed against the door, and I could hear them. The gentle, rhythmic creak of two swings moving together in the silent, watchful yard. It was a lullaby for the damned, and I was its audience of one. The study session was over. The real performance was about to begin. The realization that I was in a trap didn't hit me all at once. It was a slow, dawning horror that seeped in over several nightmarish days. The entity was done with its research. It had all the data it needed, my routines, my fears, my weak spots. Now it was going to use that information to build a prison just for me, and the first bars of that prison were made from my own memories. It started with my digital life. I woke up one morning and my laptop was open on my desk. Weird, because I always shut it down. On the screen was a half-finished email addressed to my estranged father. We hadn't spoken in over 5 years, not since a really bitter fight. The email was written in my voice, using my phrases. It was a deep, soul-bearing apology, confessing how much I regretted everything, how desperately I wanted to reconnect. I hadn't written a single word of it. Reading it felt like the deepest kind of violation. It had reached into my past, into a wound. I'd tried so hard to forget and just twisted the knife. My hand was shaking as I deleted the draft, but it was too late. The entity knew where I was most vulnerable. It knew my greatest fear wasn't some monster in the dark. It was unresolved grief. The next step was to corrupt my reality itself. The gaps in my memory got longer and happened more often. One afternoon, I was making a sandwich in the kitchen, and the next thing I knew, I was standing in the upstairs hallway. It was dark outside. I had no memory of how I got there. It felt like I was just a passenger in my own body. But the scariest part was the evidence of what I'd done during that lost time. Downstairs, the sandwich was finished, with one bite taken out of it. The plate was in the sink. Apparently I'd gone about my day, but I hadn't been the one in control. That's when I found the journal. It was a simple black moleskin notebook sitting on the armchair in the living room. It was my journal filled with my messy, distinct handwriting. The problem was I didn't own a moleskin journal. I hadn't kept a diary in over a decade. I opened it with a feeling of pure dread. The pages were filled with my innermost thoughts, my anxieties about the house, my fear of losing my mind, all written in my own hand. It detailed the moving swings, the humming, the misplaced keys. But there were other entries too, entries from the hours I had lost. It feels peaceful today, one read. The house is quiet. I think I was just stressed before. The quiet is a comfort. I sat on the swing for a while this afternoon. It feels like someone is pushing me, a gentle, friendly hand on my back. I'm not alone here, and I'm glad. And another. I talked to Dad on the phone today. It was a good conversation. We're going to see each other next month. I feel so much lighter. I finally understand. This place isn't a prison. It's a cure. I had no memory of writing any of it. It was a fake reality, a counterfeit happiness created by the entity and written by my own hand, all to make me question everything. Who was the real me? The terrified guy posting warnings on internet forums, or the calm, healing man writing in this journal? The entity was splitting my sense of self, creating a doppelganger inside my own head. The climax came on a Tuesday. I remember that day with horrifying clarity. I'd spent the morning in a near catatonic state, unable to trust a single one of my thoughts. I decided I had to leave. I couldn't stay there a second longer. I threw clothes into a bag, grabbed my wallet and laptop, and went for the door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely work the deadbolt. As I pulled the door open, I froze. My father was standing on the porch. He looked older, more frail than I remembered, but it was him. He was smiling, a warm, gentle smile I hadn't seen in years. "Son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I got your email. I came as soon as I could." My mind reeled. The email, the journal, the phone call. Was it real? Had I been so lost in my paranoia that I'd just forgotten this moment of reconciliation? Hope, a dangerous, treacherous thing, surged through me. Maybe the journal was right. Maybe I wasn't going crazy. Maybe this place really was healing me. I stepped forward, his name a choked whisper on my lips. "Dad?" He opened his arms for a hug, and I stumbled into them. For a split second it felt real. The familiar smell of his aftershave, the rough material of his jacket. And then I felt it. A deep, unnatural cold seeped into me, a cold that had nothing to do with the weather. It was a dead, hollow cold. I pulled back, my heart seizing in my chest. His smile was still there, but it was wrong. It was a perfect copy, but it was empty. A mask. And his eyes, which I now saw were just a shade too dark, held no recognition, no love. They were the eyes of something looking at a bug pinned to a board. "You're not him," I whispered, the horror finally landing. The smile widened, stretching his mouth in a way that wasn't human. The features of his face started to flicker, to waver like a bad TV signal. The image of my father dissolved, not into some monster, but into nothing. The space where he stood was suddenly empty. The door was wide open, the yard beyond it silent and still. That was the trap. It wasn't a cage of iron bars, but a cage of hope. It had learned my deepest desire to fix the one great regret of my life, and it had built it for me. It had dangled the perfect, irresistible lure. It had used my own heart against me. It knew the hope of seeing my father again would be enough to make me drop my guard, to make me doubt everything I had seen and felt. If I had stayed in that hug, if I had accepted that lie, I don't think I ever would have come back. I didn't stick around to see what it would do next. I ran. I didn't even close the door. I sprinted to my car, my bag forgotten on the porch, my hands fumbling with the keys. The engine roared to life, and I tore down that gravel driveway, watching the house shrink in my rearview mirror. As I hit the main road, I risked one last look back. There was no one on the porch, no movement in the yard, but the swing on the right was moving, slowly and deliberately, like a final, triumphant wave goodbye. Before I tell you what happened after, if this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt that chilling sense of being watched in a place that should be safe, consider subscribing for more stories from the edge of the explainable. And if you have your own story, share it in the comments. Knowing you're not alone is sometimes the only defense you have. I drove for 3 hours straight. I had no destination. I just needed to put as much distance as I could between me and that house. The adrenaline from the thing on the porch left me shaking, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every shadow on the side of the road looked like a person. Every flicker of headlights in my mirror felt like I was being followed. The trap may have been sprung, but the psychological wires were still wrapped tight around my brain. I ended up in some sterile motel room 2 towns over. The first thing I did was turn on the TV, just desperate for the sound of human voices to fill the silence. That cheap, flickering light felt like a shield. I didn't sleep for 2 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that empty, smiling face that looked like my father. I saw the swings moving in their silent, mocking rhythm. In the harsh fluorescent light of the motel room, far away from the oppressive weight of the house, I started to piece things together. I called my actual father. My hands were slick with sweat as I dialed, half expecting to hear that cold, hollow voice from the porch. But it was him, his familiar, gruff tone on the other end. He was surprised to hear from me, but he didn't mention an email or a visit. The reconciliation was a complete lie, a phantom memory created by the entity. Our conversation was awkward and stilted. The old wounds were still there, but it was real. And that reality was the anchor I desperately needed. I never went back to the house. I hired a moving company and a realtor over the phone. I told them to clear everything out and sell the property for whatever they could get. I told them to throw it all away. The furniture, my clothes, my books. I didn't want a single thing from that place in my new life. It was a huge financial hit, but my sanity was worth more than any amount of money. The realtor called me a few weeks later. She sounded confused. "It's the strangest thing," she said. "We went to clear out the house, but it's empty. Completely empty. No furniture, no boxes, nothing. It's like no one ever lived there." A chill went down my spine. The entity hadn't just erased my memories, it had erased my very presence. It had wiped the house clean, getting it ready for the next person, ready for its next study. I moved to a new city, into a noisy apartment building right in the center of town. The constant sound of traffic, of sirens, of people living their lives all around me. It's a comfort. The anonymity of a crowd is a shield. I still work as a programmer, but I don't work from home anymore. I rent a small desk in a co-working space surrounded by the boring, normal energy of other people, but the fear never really leaves you. It's a low hum beneath the surface of everything. I have trouble with my memory now. I'll walk into a room and have no idea why I went there. I forget names, appointments. My doctor says it's a symptom of PTSD. I think it's a part of me that the entity chipped away, a piece it kept for itself. I still check that old forum sometimes. A few months after I ran, a new thread popped up. Username Fresh Start 22. Subject: new house, beautiful yard, but one weird thing. Hey everyone. Just moved into a great house in the country. It's so peaceful and quiet. The only strange thing is this old swing set in the backyard. The swing on the right seems to move on its own sometimes, probably just the wind, right? I stared at the post for a long, long time, my heart pounding in my chest. I started to type a reply, a frantic warning. Get out. It's a trap. It's not a ghost, it's a predator. It will learn you, it will break you. But then I deleted it. Who would believe me? They'd think I was a troll or just some lunatic. They would have to learn for themselves, just like I did. The house with the swing set at the edge of the woods is still out there. It's waiting, it's patient. It learns from everyone who walks through its doors, refining its methods, perfecting its traps. I was the one who wrote that original forum post, that fragmented cry for help. This is the full story, and it's a warning. Be careful of places that seem too perfect, too quiet. Be careful of your own hopes and regrets, because they can be turned into weapons. And if you ever find yourself looking at a swing that's moving with no wind to push it, don't try to understand it. Don't try to rationalize it. Just run.